if you're like, I don't know who's going to listen, but I want to start something, okay, get a Blue Yeti mic.
Yeah.
You can get a couple for individual guests. You can get one and put it in the center of the table. Whatever you want to do, you can make that happen. I did that to begin with. That was my first mic. Funny enough, my first episode was not even recorded on the mic. I had plugged in. I didn't select it. So it was recorded through my
Same thing happened
computer.
for us.
And that episode up until, it's probably my top 3 most listened to episode. And up until probably a year and a half ago, it was my most listened to episode.
Wow. That's awesome. And it's bad
and
to you.
Like,
you
the
know?
audio quality is just not there.
Yeah.
No,
the conversation's great,
know.
but like the audio quality is not there. And I think with video too, it's easy to get like, well, I don't have all these different things. It's like you have a cell phone. Your cell phone's probably the best camera you're going to have, because you probably don't have a Sony something, like a Sony A7 III or whatever it might be to record, and you need to record longer in length. Well, just put your phone in airplane mode, set it up. Well, if you only have one camera, let's just do it for one angle for the whole thing, and that's
exactly
fine. Like,
yeah.
You don't have to, there's even
it is cool to switch, you know.
And there's iterations in my podcast where like I do things for my clients better than I do it for myself, and just because it's like I record so much for myself and have so much content that has to come out that like I need to get to a certain point of just having good content. It doesn't have to be like perfect, because it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect, and I think that's also an easy thing with podcasting is to seek perfection. Because if you get to this point that it's like it has to be a perfect conversation, you're never going to publish anything. You're not going to enjoy doing it, and you're going to stop after a few episodes.
Right. That's the biggest thing, is everybody needs to start and then iterate as you go. And I think that would probably be your advice.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, let's dig into it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
For sure. What's up, guys? Welcome back to What's Next Huntsville. Today we are sitting with an exciting guest, Clark Dunn. And to give a little bit of background, Clark, we saw your reels on Instagram. That's how we found you. And they were the Beyond Rockets podcast. Actually, I think it was Ashanti that you had on recently.
Yeah, we had her
Nash.
on.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so she came on season 1. But you're doing things a bit differently. It's not specifically young entrepreneurs. It's much more broad. And you're also using Beyond Rockets, like the actual podcast, to create a product and a service for people, which is awesome. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Excited to be here.
Excited to talk to you.
I don't often get the time to be on the other side of the mic, so it's fun to have these conversations.
Yeah. Have you ever been on the other side of the mic?
I have a couple times on my own podcast, twice. I have been interviewed.
Cool.
My 1-year anniversary, and then about this time last year, or end of 2023, I was interviewed by friends of mine.
Yeah.
And then I've been on a couple different things here and there, but really, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, no, not really.
Okay.
I'm on the side of being the one interviewing, not the one being interviewed.
Well, we're glad to give you a platform to
kind of have a conversation.
Maybe some people will come over and check you out. That's kind of the goal here, is to build a community of people that can all intermingle, and that's something that we're actually kind of building, and we'll probably tell you more about later.
Yeah.
But we just want to shout out Scott McLean for letting us use his cool office space, and believing in us and seeing our vision. And
I hope you like the environment.
Yeah, love the space. This is a building that I know I've learned a lot about as love Huntsville, so I've get to learn about a lot of cool things, but not one I've actually been up in the building to. Definitely gone to Coffee Clutch multiple times.
I cannot pronounce that.
Frequent flyer of Coffee Clutch.
How is it?
Coffee Clutch.
Coffee Clutch. Okay.
So I'm actually probably gonna stop there after this episode and get some coffee to go home, because I ran
good
out.
Idea.
So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm glad I learned something today.
Yeah, excited for this conversation. So bring me So your advice before was just start, iterate as you go. Can you bring us back to the start of Beyond Rockets?
Sure.
All of that?
Yeah. So May of 2019 is when I started the podcast.
Okay.
And so probably I would say April of 2019, I kind of had this idea. I loved podcasts, loved consuming them. Definitely consumed probably more than I do now. As life's gone on, it's definitely changed from probably podcasts to audiobooks. But I still do consume probably a decent amount of podcasts. But at the time, I was listening to them all the time. And my favorite one at the time, and still to this day, I listen to it a lot, is How I Built This, the NPR podcast. Yeah. That has been that was kind of the inspiration behind Beyond Rockets. It was, hey, I love Huntsville. There's a lot happening. 2019 was kind of, there's a lot more things happening downtown. I guess 2017 DHI started. So like you kind of have this downtown revitalization that started, and you're starting to see like the fruits of that come. And so it was like, okay, maybe I'll start a podcast and interview people that are business owners in town. That was sort of the initial premise.
Yeah.
And I remember I asked my wife, and I was like, hey, what if I started a podcast? Would you listen? And she was like, oh, yeah, I would. Yeah, it's okay. And she like told a friend before I even had started the podcast. And she was like, oh, I listen too. I was like, well, if 2 people are going to listen, let's start this thing.
Yeah.
At the time, I had a different name for it. I wish I could go back and find it, but it was a different name for the podcast. I looked on Instagram. The handle was taken. Hadn't been active on the account, but it was already taken. And I was like, I don't really want to deal with reaching out. And then I remember, I don't even know how Beyond Rockets came about.
I like it.
It's obviously it's stuck, it's fit, and I couldn't imagine it not being that. And so I got the Instagram, got the Facebook, and knew one person that had a production company in town, JP. He owned Orange Beard Films. Had him on the podcast. Reached out to him. He said absolutely would love to be on. We went to his home office studio. Set up my laptop, Blue Yeti mic. Didn't select the mic as the option, like I mentioned earlier. Just kind of pressed record and went with it.
Yeah.
We recorded in Audacity. It was free. That's the only thing I had. So it was like I don't want to low cost, very low cost. Like at this point, we had zero money into the podcast. And pressed record, had a great conversation, and then from that, the next 2 or 3 guests came on because of just they knew JP and they wanted to come on. And then I reached out to a few myself. After you had a couple episodes, you had some sort of like, hey, there's this thing.
Little portfolio.
At the time, there really wasn't a ton of podcasts. No Huntsville was a big one at the time. Tom Patterson, gotten to know him over the last little bit. He didn't know Huntsville for a very long time. Alex Hendricks worked with him there. And so that podcast was around, but it was really much more culture, music stuff. But they did super cool stuff. They actually recorded, I think, some of the Clinton Row shops and some of they had a little storage container thing there storage room that they recorded some of the podcast in. Cool. And so there was a few around. But you kind of started just kind of growing through word of mouth. And that's what the first, 4 or 5 months looked like.
Yeah.
And we were able to interview some people that I had no business coming on the podcast where I only had 3 episodes. Had very, my second or third episode, we had a very bad audio. And I remember recording it, and I was still by myself at the time doing it. And I remember being like, I cannot publish this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, this does not. And it was like, and I was like thinking like I have some sort of like expectation, but like I had one other episode, and I'm like, I just can't publish this. This is not good. And so I reached back out to it was Good Company Cafe, and I'm good friends with Angela over there. And so I reached back out. And I was like, hey, I'm so sorry that audio just didn't.
Can we reshoot?
Well. Like a plane went over. I think every possible noise that has ever happened.
Air conditioning unit.
Like ever. Yeah. Like it was a plane, it was an ambulance, it was a fire truck. It's like where like and it was like just during the episode. Like I don't think I've ever heard like all of it at one time since. And that was, 5 years ago. Yeah. And she was like, absolutely not a problem. And JP actually, after he did his episode, I had done 1 or 2 others, he was like, hey, I have zero desire to do what you do. I have zero desire to interview people, talk on a microphone, be the voice, be the face, not me. I was like, okay. He's like, but I've always wanted to do a podcast. I have all this equipment. I would love, if you were interested, to be producer for it. And I was like, absolutely. I have zero clue what I'm doing. And so for the first 2 seasons at the time, we were doing, he was a part of it. And so we did, at the time, since I was in college, we were doing 12 episodes as seasons.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to UAH.
Oh,
so
cool,
I did, I'm a Huntsville native, so I've been here forever.
What'd you study?
I have a marketing degree from UAH. I did 2 years at Calhoun, computer science track. And got an internship my junior year at UAH. Thought I was going to, live the Huntsville dream. Already had the podcast and a little bit of business at the time. Got an internship. Realized that's definitely not for me. Couldn't do it. Could never do it.
The computer science?
Yes, couldn't do it. Not for me. Like, I just love this, and I love conversations, and I love meeting people. And that's the complete opposite of being an engineer in a cubicle.
Oh, exactly.
And so I dropped every single class I had, just had their minimum hours my junior year at UAH. Switched to marketing because I thought that was, the fit. And then decided that I was going to graduate on time with all my friends. And so I did 18 hours a semester, spring, summer, fall, spring.
That's amazing.
And graduated on time with my friends. And
what year?
2021.
Okay.
So I graduated in May of 21 from UAH, got married May of 21, and went full-time in the business in May of 21.
Wow.
So in the span of like 3 weeks, this all happens. And it's like, oh, goodness gracious. Now I got to really figure this out.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, it's the podcast has definitely been that. It's just gotten me out there. I mean, I think for the longest time, too, it was trying to separate the business from the podcast in the sense that like I wanted people to know that I wasn't just a podcast host.
Right.
And that's, I think, become more prevalent over the last year and a half. Really, and I think that's just been because I've had the time to kind of put into like creating a brand for myself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, from my perspective, finding you online and, you know, kind of looking at your stuff, I can tell that, you know, oh, this guy has a podcast. But then you click on the link to your website and you're like, oh, wait, you offer podcast services.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if you go down your funnel, then it's pretty like able. You'll see
The
what you're
website
doing.
has definitely been. We just got that redone. First of the year.
It looks good.
Thank you. Eli Walton of Leary Studio did that for me. We worked closely together on some projects, and I was like, last August, so I guess a year ago, we kind of made the shift. I realized that I had no idea how to sell the business. Like that, I had zero clue how to sell. I hadn't had to sell. Fortunately, as the podcast had continued to grow, as the business had gone, word of mouth really grew the business. The first 4 years, it just grew the business word of mouth. And then we got to this point last August where it's like, oh no, I have zero clue how to get new business. I haven't had to get new business, and I just lost a quarter of the business. And so we kind of redirected what it is that I sell. How do I sell? How do I cold email? How do I do opens? How do I do all these things as a business owner? And then in that January, we launched the new website. And that's been like before that, if you would have seen the website, you would have been like, you would have only thought I had a podcast. You would have not thought I owned a business.
Yeah.
But now it's like the podcast is just one little tab. So you can come to the website and not even know I have a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's the intent.
Exactly. So what was the process from podcast host specifically into business owner? What was that like? Like, because I understand it definitely from what we've been doing that you gain a passion like we were speaking about before. You really enjoy what it is that you're doing. But then, like you're saying about figuring out how to sell, how to package that as a service, how to sell that, how to market it. What was that process like? So
the process, it happened very quickly. And like looking back on it, it's amazing for me to see how quickly it grew. 2019, we started the podcast. I would say by March of 2020, we probably had our first, probably even earlier than that, probably within 3 months, probably within that fall of 2019, we already having a couple clients doing marketing work. Wow. Got to be friends with the owners of Offbeat Coffee Studio. I was there all the time. It was close to campus. I liked working at coffee shops. Didn't like working on campus. Still to this day, there's a lot of work I love doing at the office, and there's a lot of work I love doing at coffee shops. And so I got to be at Offbeat a lot. They got to know me. I had them on the podcast, and one day I was just like, "Hey, I think I can help you with your marketing. I have zero idea what I'm doing. Like, you honestly, like, you probably shouldn't trust me to do it, but I think I can help.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay me. I'm already here.
Yeah.
If you want to do like gift cards or just like stuff for Offbeat, like I'm already spending money here."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Okay, like let's give it a try." And so fortunately, Kyle and Anna, husband that own it, and Drew Fanning that used to work there too, they gave me the opportunity to just give it a try. And from that, within a few months, they were like, "We really like what you were doing," and then they started referring me to people.
Cool.
They knew, and then it got to the point that they then started like I actually had money coming in that I was like, okay, how do I do this?
Right.
And then probably that following October, so October of 2020, we probably had half a dozen or so clients. The main service we were selling at that time was social media marketing.
Okay.
Primarily running Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah.
Content creation.
Was it full management as well?
Yeah, so we were pretty much doing all the content creation, and we were scheduling posts and like working with the clients to like figure out what they wanted to talk about. Like if general, like, hey, here's these general things that we do in the business. It's our core 3.
Yeah.
And then like as seasonal things came up or events came up, we would then coordinate that and add that to the posting schedule. So that's pretty much what we were doing, and that's pretty much what the business was primarily up until 2021. July of 2021 or so. So at that point in October of 2020, we had half a dozen clients, and I was like, I should probably make this a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, money's coming in. I need to make this an LLC or some sort of company. So in October of 2020, we formed the LLC for Beyond Rockets. So the Beyond Rockets, technically as a company, will be 4 years in October.
Wow.
And it just, from that, we just started getting more social media clients. You would lose some, you would gain some. I think with social media marketing, it was a great entry point to meet people. But you are often, as small businesses have trouble financially, you're the first ones to leave.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're the outsourced marketing support. So, we had clients that we had for multiple years, 2 or 3, 4 years.
That's amazing.
But then we also had clients that we would have for 6 months and something was to happen. And that was just the name of the game, and that was fine. But got to work with a lot of cool companies. We did a lot of breweries in Huntsville. We've done some restaurants in Huntsville.
Cool.
Like gyms, coffee shops. So that was sort of what the first few years looked like.
Yeah.
And then up until, I guess, really July is when we got our first podcast. July of 2021, we got our first podcast client.
Because I was just thinking, wow, everything that you've done, you kind of done solo, and that's crazy to me. Because Dylan and I, we like to say we have the brain multiplier effect, where two minds working together equals more than two minds.
Right.
So for me, doing everything that I'm doing, like doing my phone case thing, doing the podcast, doing our other ventures, is like, it's kind of like, okay, we know where we want to go. We know the things we need to do. And it's like we inspire each other almost.
Yeah.
So being able to go and do all this kind of, yes, you've talked to people and you've gotten knowledge and stuff, but still to go home or go to your office and sit down and work is like amazing. That's pretty cool that you're kind of doing this all, by yourself. Well, just starting out.
Yeah. And I think like there's definitely like, as like I mentioned, the people that I partner with and work with a lot, and then my wife just being there like to help support on some things that like it's easy to get stuck in your head of like especially when like I was doing social media stuff, it gets very easy to get into this routine of like, this is how they talk, this is how I should say it, this is how I should post it, this is how it should look, and then having someone that can step outside and be the consumer a little bit more and go, that doesn't look really that good. Or my wife would be like, that makes no sense. Like whatever you just wrote down and try to type as a caption absolutely makes no sense. And I'm like, okay, well this is what I'm saying. And then I will tell her what I was saying, and then she'll go, oh yeah, okay, here you go. And then she'll fix it and make it look amazing. And so I think that's like, it's very easy to get tunnel vision. And I think over the last really year and a half, being able for me to separate working in the business and on the business has been the most important thing. Because if I probably work on the business 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week. Like I would say 2 days a week for sure is pretty much the entire day if I can help it.
Yeah.
I would say I work on the business a couple hours a day just as like, okay, I need to set aside the morning to do this and like hit these people and respond to these people and network and post this for the business. But then I think having those days where it's like, I can go to the coffee shop, I can go to Honest, I can go to Bus Stop, I can go to Gold Sprint. There's the 3 I rotate. Turbo, because it's at my office sometimes, I'll stop in there. But you go there and you can just put on headphones and work on the business. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes not fun.
Yeah.
And that's what you also have to get into your head. It's like, it's not always going to be fun.
Yeah.
But the distance it helps you separate yourself is huge.
Oh, yeah. That's one thing, like, for us is Sean sort of was teasing at it before, but one of the initiatives that we're starting now, there's a board of directors, and then and obviously because this is a startup, we get a lot of the brain multiplier effect because a lot of it is working through different things. But that separation between working on the business versus working in the business, that's one of those that, like, for us, like one of the key documents that we use. I don't know what your process is with like staying up to date with your different clients. You probably have a laid out beautiful process, but the way that we do it is like having a progress check. Yeah. So thinking about what are the main things that need to happen for working on the business. These are going to be the board of director things. These are going to be the documents that, the LLCs and the business plans and all of that stuff. And then there's the things where it's like taking action, the action steps, where it's like, hey, I need to get this thing into the vault, which is going to be the deliverable, and I need to get this event planned. I need to get this person lined up to be a speaker, and all of this.
Workflow stuff is the most important. Like I think, like we have a variety of different softwares that we use for workflow, deals deal flow. So like I use HubSpot to kind of track my deals.
It is tough to get into HubSpot as a small business though, because I mean the price is.
So like I am bare minimum. Like I don't even think if I pay, it's very like I am like the smallest. Like I use it just for the sense that I can go in there and throw in someone's name on a deal stage as like an ideal client and just kind of see, okay, well, like if I want to have more in the recurring deals, I need to have more people down the funnel.
Right.
And so like that's a visual representation of where the business is at every moment that I can open up. And then I use stuff like Notion to track workflow with guests, because like I have so many podcasts that come out for so many different clients that have so many different assets, that have so many different time frames, that have so many different like there's a lot of things that like oftentimes like I'll sit there on Mondays and go, now who do I release podcasts for this week?
Right.
And then I kind of look through like all my podcasts and go, okay, well that person released 2 weeks ago, so they're releasing this Tuesday. Okay, that person released a week ago, so they have 2 more weeks. And I'm having to like, okay, well this week alone we have 3 that are releasing. Okay, well I need to make sure there's a post that comes out on this day. I need a post that follows up this day. And so there's a lot of that, of just like a lot of moving pieces. But Notion allows me to kind of sit there and go, where are we? Where have we been? And where are we going?
Right. Absolutely. And that's one of the crucial things, is being able to. You said it perfectly earlier. How you're not going to have that 20/20 vision until you're looking back. It was something along those lines.
100%. It's easy to get caught up in that tunnel vision of like, where am I going now? Where am I going next?
Exactly.
What's ahead of me? What's ahead of me?
I like looking back. It's fun to. I didn't really look back for a while at our previous work, but doing it is kind of. It's fun to see where you've come.
I mean, it's if you're not getting better, you're not growing. And I think it's one of those things that you get. It's easy to not look back, and I think it's important to not like. I don't think I'd probably look back and reminisce. It's more like a quarterly thing, because it's like, okay, what have we done this quarter? And we can sit down. I sit down with my one of the guys that helps me with the finance stuff. We sit down and I go, okay, what does the business look like last quarter? What do we do quarter over quarter?
Yeah.
What does the next quarter look like?
Right.
Okay, are we like, what all do we need to try to sell to get better, or what do we need to like follow up with to do this? But yeah, looking back, it's one of those. It's a cool thing. I mean, looking at, especially when you create content and you have like a catalog of things that you've been on. Like, I mean, the amount of like I don't understand why anyone would want to go back and watch me or listen to me, but people do, and it's one of those just like absolutely craziest things to think about. Like I don't even think I listen to my podcast after I release it, and I don't think I have in a long time. Like, and like I have editors now, so like I don't even like edit it anymore. So it's like I am just in the moment with the guest, and that's the only time I actually like. I think I listened to one recently back as a guest you had on, Jenny Ashkins.
Oh yeah.
My wife was interested in that conversation because we were talking about some things she mentioned, and we listened to it on a drive to Chattanooga, and it was just like that's like probably the only episode in maybe the last 3 years that I've actually listened to.
That's hilarious.
That's amazing.
And and it's not like I just don't like. It's not that I don't like hearing my own voice.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with it. Like I wear headphones on a lot of my podcasts. And I hear it when I'm talking, and it's fine. But it's just like I couldn't like to see the numbers and to even think that that's someone listening and that they're like, it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, I love that looking back. I think for me, looking back is I almost get. I don't get mad, but I'm like, I should have. I get embarrassed definitely, but I should have. And specifically, there was a conversation with. Well, maybe it wasn't on the podcast, but in multiple conversations, I'll look back and I'll say, dang, I could have asked that question differently. I should have dug into that one thing more. And I think that kind of makes me think, okay, for the next podcast, I want to dig into this certain thing more. So I think it's very beneficial for me just to every now and then, like on a quarterly basis, to look back and see where we've come. And it's kind of like an ego thing too, because I'm like, wow, this podcast before was terrible, and now the one I have right now is like, I mean, it's okay. Like, it's not where
it's a lot better.
We have a lot to go.
I think I'm trying to fight perfection, like I mentioned earlier. Like,
it's tough.
It's tough, but it's also important that you're like the way you're looking at it is backwards, not necessarily in the moment. I have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it in the moment, you're not going to want to publish anything. But if you look at it once you've already published it, then it's like, well, it's already out there.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, like, and like I do that a lot, especially when I'm interviewing people for like clients, and I'm meeting people that like I have never met before, and it's on someone else's podcast that I'm the host. where I think, oh man, like it was a great conversation, and I've done it multiple times. Where I'm like, I had a great conversation. I look at the team, they're like, it was great, and then I'm like, I should have gone deeper into that one topic they mentioned. Like our time was great. Like I hit the time I needed to. Like I have like an internal clock where I've gotten to where like I can hit 20 minutes pretty on the dot.
Yeah.
And that's typically with clients. It's
I
like
salute
20
you. That's hard.
20 to 30 minute episodes. But there's sometimes it's like, and it's fine if it goes a little longer, but there's sometimes where it's like, I didn't think in the moment this was going to be as important, or I didn't think the guest was going to want to talk more about it, but I should have just at least asked.
Exactly.
Because the worst thing they can do is like answer it but not really answer it, and then you move on.
Exactly. And speaking of time, we could sit here and talk all day
we
about
definitely
things
could.
because the time really flies when we get on these podcasts because we really
fun.
dig into these conversations and we have fun. But time is coming to an end here. So it's like, how do we want to wrap this up? Is there anything any knowledge you want to give them?
Yeah,
or
I have one question, one last
you wanna
question.
Dig out some more.
Yeah, so we've kind of gone through how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that your wife is going to get introduced into the business. You mentioned some changes on deliverable. What are the next big changes for you? What's coming up next?
So the biggest thing that we're working on is a new project, and it'll actually release first episode tomorrow. And that's probably that's where my focus has been probably since the end of May. 1st of June has been this project.
Behind the cubicle.
Behind the cubicle, yeah. And so we were like that project is probably one of my most I am the most excited for it because I think now knowing what it takes to build something, I'm excited to start running. Like we are, it's full speed ahead. It has been since we started. But it releases tomorrow, and what that is a podcast co-op. And so businesses have gotten the opportunity in conversations I've had with companies in town that they want to do it. They want to do a podcast, but they don't have the bandwidth or the time to do 2 episodes a month, and they want to test it before they buy it. And so that's what behind the cubicle is. It's an opportunity for companies to come on. They pay to come on. Every episode's a different guest with different, like I don't interview. No one on the team interviews. It's 2 people from an X company coming on and having a conversation about their company, the company culture, interviewing each other, talking about what they're doing in the community, what they do to deliver unparalleled results to their clients. And we're excited. The first episode releases on the 14th, which I think is tomorrow.
Sweet.
13th or 14th.
Awesome.
Whatever day of the week it is right now. It is, yes, the 14th of August. The first episode releases. And 2 episodes a month. First episode is just with me and Eli Walton. They're on the project with me as well, with Judah and Elaine. And we just kind of, our perspective on this first episode is from each other being business owners, not necessarily like we are part of Behind the Cubicle, is not the intent. But founder of Beyond Rockets, and Eli is the creative director of Lyric Studio, and talking about pain points that we see businesses have, which is self-promotion, and that's what Behind the Cubicle solves.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think
that's awesome. That
project has it's been a labor of love the last little bit. Like we're excited, like it's fun. It's fun to start something from scratch. That's where most of my conversations have been in the business, so we're ready to get that up and running. And kind of see what that can do. So that opens up the door for us to service a lot of companies here locally, and we kept the name not having Huntsville in it because we wanted the project to be seen by people that aren't in Huntsville. So like it won't be hard for us to market in Huntsville. That's not going to be
awesome.
But we want to make sure that this business and this project is seen by people in Austin, Nashville, and Florida, and wherever. And so that's the future. That's really what the next, I guess, 4 months are going to kind of be heavy lifting, finishing up with some new clients, getting some new clients ready to start first of the year. This is a good time of the year to start kind of having conversations in August. So we're excited for what that looks like.
That's awesome,
man. We wish you the best, for real.
Absolutely. We could sit here for another 2 hours for sure.
And
we'll definitely have to connect
for sure.
Because I'd love to talk more about podcasts and other business endeavors and all of that.
I think we might have something you might be interested here coming up that can kind of play into some of that. But
sweet.
We want to reconnect soon, see the progress on this.
Sure. We'll have everything for you guys.
All the links down below.
Perfect.
But
thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Look forward to the future convos.
I'm excited
for sure. And thank you guys for tuning in. Like I said, you'll find all of Clark's links down below. But look forward to new episodes coming from him as well as from us. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
See ya.